It's not easy saying goodbye to students, is it? I used to cry every single time a student would leave the studio, even in those situations when it was the best thing that could have possibly happened. Now, over the years, it's certainly gotten a lot easier, but I believe how we say goodbye is just as important as how we welcome students and clients into our studio. I'm going to be sharing 3 situations and tips on how to handle each of them for how to say goodbye to our students and their families in a way that they leave feeling valued. If we haven't met, I'm Rosemarie Penner from the Unfinished Lesson, and I want it all. I want a life where I can balance and juggling work and hopefully saying sentences correctly, with also having a family life with twins. I also want to still have time and energy to be able to creatively teach in my studio. The Unfinished Lesson started as my way of being able to help other independent music teachers and studio owners have balance in their life and creativity in their studios. Because guess what? You can have it all. Be sure to watch to the end. I will be including a resource that is going to help you be able to say goodbye to your students in a way that they feel supported, that they feel happy in terms of their time with you. These ideas are going to help nurture your studio, as well as hopefully increase your referral rates long after your clients have left. So the first situation is the bittersweet move. This is a situation in which your clients are moving away, right? Now, with more online lessons, this situation is going to be happening less, but outside circumstances mean that sometimes families have to move or they just need to leave the studio. And while we can do online lessons, the problem is that not all families are open to or able to do online lessons. And it might even be that where you live, it's not really feasible to be doing online lessons, at least not unless they're asynchronistic. So how do we support families that are going to be moving when it's not really a situation of they want to be leaving you, but it's just the way that it's worked out? Well, idea 1, make that last lesson count. My biggest suggestion here is whatever your students' favorite activities are, make sure you do those the last lesson. We want to make sure that that last lesson is a fun one for our students. You can do improvisation, games, digital escape rooms, getting off the bench. Most of my students love all of those, and so those are the ones that I would focus in on. Check out the video for how to use digital escape rooms in your studio if this is something new to you. So maybe it might not be a favorite activity, but it could be something that you think your student would enjoy doing that last lesson. Idea 2, send a personalized handwritten card. It's more special than email. Emails are very easy to send, right? I mean, we can be sitting on the couch with our phone and just quickly type something out and, we're done. But a handwritten note, now that's something special. What I would recommend is either if you're able to send it early enough that they get it before they move, or even better, just make sure you check in that the mail is getting forwarded. Let them know you're sending something special for them so that when they get to their new place and it's forwarded, it's something special once they arrive there. Idea 3, offer to ask other colleagues for recommendations. As someone who moved 13 times in 12 years, I understand how hard moving is. So of those 13 moves, I lived in 2 separate countries, and within Canada, I lived in 2 separate provinces with multiple cities in each of them. So I know what it's like to pack up all of your stuff and go somewhere else. It's not easy. And so what we want to do is take one more thing off of that to-do list. It's pretty easy for us to reach out We can do it through social media, or we can contact a teacher association and get a sense of some teachers that maybe have a similar teaching style to us that we can then recommend. So some families, they're going to really appreciate that that is one less thing they need to do when they get to their new home. And so we want to make sure that this is something that we're doing that just makes life a little easier for them. Idea 4, follow up after the move. We're wanting to keep the relationship strong here. So you might be wondering, if I don't want to teach online or they don't want online lessons, why am I putting all this effort into like finding another teacher for them potentially and, following up with them after? Well, maybe they aren't wanting to do online lessons, but that doesn't mean other people wouldn't. So it could be that, for example, they talk to people before they move. Wow, our teacher's being so amazing. And wait, you guys are looking for a teacher? Absolutely. You should definitely contact them. So that's if you're teaching in person in your area, then you can get referrals even before they've left, because they've probably talked about all the things that are going wrong and that are stressful. And if you're the one thing that is less stressful, they're going to mention you and how amazing you are. And if you do teach online, but they weren't willing, when they get to their new home and they're making friends and getting to know people, they may end up recommending you. Oh my goodness, so amazing as a teacher. Here's their email, definitely contact them. So either way, you can be getting a referral, even though the chances of you teaching that family might not be very high. So situation 2. This is when priorities or finances change. We have seen how quickly things can change, and more specifically, how things can unexpectedly change. And so we want to be supportive of the families because, we all need support at times. So even if you're not going to be teaching them, we can still provide that support in a transitional time in their family's life. So the first idea is a handwritten note and a gift. So the first one, you're going to notice some of these ideas are similar or the same, and I'll explain why. The reason I wouldn't do a gift for family that's moving, again, as someone who has had to do the packing and just recently was helping my parents unpack stuff because they moved. Please don't give a gift, right? Anything physical, it's just one more thing that can get lost in the shuffle. In this case, if they're not moving, then yeah, a physical gift could be a really amazing thing. So again, you want to make sure it's personalized and it's meaningful, that card, but also that the gift is. I would stay away from a musical related gift. So giving sheet music or giving, really anything related to lessons, even if your intent is just that the student can continue on their own, it can come across as kind of like this thinly veiled attempt to get them to change their mind. So I would focus on something for the family or something for the student that is not related to lessons. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're doing something there. Idea 2, again, make that last lesson special. So any of the ideas I've already mentioned work really great. Now this one, because there's a chance you could have them come back to the studio in the future, I would actually recommend a student-led conference. This is a fantastic way of celebrating all the wonderful things that your student has done in your studio, but also that it kind of gives them highlights of their journey with you. Remember that our first and last impressions tend to be the strongest. And so what we're doing is kind of creating that end impression of, wow, look at how far my child has come. And so it helps show the value you provide. We're not pressuring them to sign up again right away. We have to respect the fact that things have changed. So if it's a priority thing, so for example, one family I worked with, they love hockey. They're a hockey family. and basically hockey practices between the different family members are 5 nights, if not 6 nights a week. And so as much as they loved piano lessons with me, they realized they couldn't commit to both. And so they chose hockey. Not a problem. I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about a student-led conference in that situation. You could, but I would focus more on the favorite activities. But if it's a financial thing, then finances can change, right? That situation can change over time. And so a student-led conference would be a great option because you're showing the value of what they've already invested in. So that when that situation changes in the future, again, you're doing this in a no pressure way. You're not even pointing out that correlation. Hopefully they remember, oh yeah, remember how much, how much progress was made in that time? We should call up again, or we should sign up again. Idea number 3, invite them back. So remind them that they are more than welcome back. Sometimes we need to make that really clear. We might assume that they know that, but letting them know, saying, look, I would love to have you guys back. If circumstances change, just let me know. I'd love to have you back in the studio. Keep in mind, this doesn't mean you're holding their spot for them. You're moving on, and you're running your business, but the door's open for them to come back. So again, priorities can change, finances can change. And so if you're willing for them to come back, if you would love that, then let them know that. That works out really, really well. Idea 4, invite them to call, text, email, anytime. So what we're doing is we're keeping the door open, right? We're keeping that relationship going. It doesn't mean that we're doing this immediately. Maybe it's like a week later, maybe it, and then it's like, say, a month later. Maybe it's just at the holidays. And so we're kind of taking it from a breakup situation where it's like we never talk again to maybe I'll see you later. And if you happen to run into them, then it's like, oh my goodness, yeah, thank you so much for sending me. I really love that video of that first snowboarding lesson. That was amazing. How's that going? Notice it's not anything about piano lessons or music lessons. It's about their family life. It helps them understand that they're more than just a paycheck to you, that you genuinely care about their family. And so, it definitely works really well, just letting them know that door of communication, that relationship can still be happening. Some of those texts and emails have been amazing. I've been really excited, seeing new members of the family, whether they are animal or human. And so having that connection with them still is a wonderful thing. If it's a financial situation, invite them to reach out if their child is learning something on their own and they get stuck. I'm not advocating for free lessons here. Now, if you choose to do some free lessons or reduced lesson rates for a family, that's your decision. And if it works for you, then great. I have offered this for years. I have never had a family take advantage of it where all of a sudden every week I'm getting a message, well, I'm trying to learn this song. Can you help me with this? And then can you help me with this? And then can you help me with this? I'm not saying it couldn't happen. And if it does, then you could bring up, you know what, it sounds like you might be ready for lessons again. Do you want to set that up? Right? You can open the door at that point. But if it's a one-off thing, then all of a sudden, again, you're letting them know they're more than just a paycheck and you're providing just a little bit of support. And chances are you can provide that support in like 2 minutes. It's not going to take a lot of time because I really do feel like there needs to be a balance between our admin time and yes, returning those communications, whether they're text, email, or calls, that falls under admin time. We need balance there because we want to have a life outside of our studios, outside of teaching. But we can do that in a pretty short period of time. And it just kind of, it keeps the door open for them to come back, or they're going to go, wow, Like, our teacher was so supportive. We're not doing lessons right now, but you should absolutely call them or email them, check them out. They're amazing, right? Again, when we're saying goodbye, it's not just about saying goodbye. It's about what happens in the future with our studios, right? We're thinking about how that helps our studio and how it helps the families as they move forward. So situation 3, the mutual breakup. Now, this breakup may be mutual and maybe it's not. And I think it is the hardest one to deal with. However, it's also possibly the most damaging to your studio reputation if you don't handle it well. So I'm going to spend a little extra time on this one. Hopefully you won't have to deal with this situation very often, but I do think that the consequences of how you say goodbye in this situation are among the most important to really focus in on. So this is the situation where one or both of you, that last lesson is just like, oh, hallelujah, we are done. You may never want to talk to each other again. You never want them to recommend anybody to you. You never want to fill in the blank. Okay. These are probably the clients that have driven you crazy and have caused the most amount of stress. So why are we going to care how we say goodbye? Well, in this case, because they can do the most damage, we have to keep in mind that there are online reviews of our studios, whether we're aware of them or not. It could be that they're talking to family members or friends on their social media channels that we have no access to, that they're talking about their experience with you. It could be official reviews. It could be just verbal conversations that they're having with people. We want to make sure that those conversations are as positive as we can make them. Okay, so that's the goal in this situation, in the breakup. So idea 1, handwritten card. I know, I've said it, right? You're just like, Rosemarie, okay, yeah, I get it, handwritten card. That's because this is important. Remember, this is one of our last opportunities to make an impression on the family. Regardless of the situation, I would recommend a handwritten card that we are mailing. Email is not going to be the best option in this particular situation. You might be able to get away with it in the previous 2, but not here. Chances are this client has already been ignoring your emails. So sending another one, regardless of how well worded it is and how beautiful your sentiments are, they're probably not going to read it. So sending something in the mail, it's surprising enough that they'll open it, even for no reason other than just, I'm going to just open it and separate the compost, or sorry, not the compost, the recycling from the garbage, you know, but we want to send them something that has a higher likelihood that they're actually going to read it. You're going to find the positives of your time together. Rack your brain if you have to. Okay, there had to have been some positives. I have worked in some really amazing schools for some really amazing administrators, and I have worked for some really horrible schools. Actually, it's not so much that the schools were horrible, the administration was horrible. And I won't go into all the reasons why they were horrible. But regardless of what the situation was, find the positives. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the relationship. It doesn't matter the situation. There would have been some positives. And so take some time, really find them. It could be, I always really appreciated that you guys attended the recitals and was excited to see the progress that your child made. You know, maybe you didn't particularly like the songs, maybe you didn't particularly like the fact that then they would complain to you later on about stuff, but they attended, they supported their child. You know what? I have really enjoyed being able to teach your child and then find something that their child did well. You know, I love how they really improved in this particular thing. And it might be something small. Doesn't matter what it is, find a positive. Idea 2, ask for feedback. Now, you may think I'm a little crazy if it's a really bad situation. We've all been there, where the client you feel is being completely unreasonable. And yes, I've been there. I had a client who got upset. She actually said, we're not coming back to the studio next year because you're not doing makeup lessons. She had thought it was appropriate for me to drive 80 minutes round trip weekly for a 30-minute lesson. And I was supposed to still do makeup lessons in person. That was not going to be reasonable. I'd already done that the previous year in terms of my studio that I did in-person makeup lessons, and I was completely burnt out. And frankly, it was stressful for the families as well. So instead of moving all 3 of the kids in the family to 30-minute lessons, it was going to be down to 1. And yeah, that 80-minute round trip. So I was quite happy when we broke up. She wasn't going to be returning. So asking for feedback, you might think, is a little crazy. I would recommend this always be a part of your annual or even semester studio admin. If you run on an annual calendar, so I run my studio September through June. So every June, I ask my students and actually the parents for feedback so that I can use that as I plan things for the upcoming year. In this situation, it's especially important. Remember, they're going to share their opinion. So make sure that it's heard. And if it's heard by you, and you can help them feel that you have really, truly listened and considered what they're saying, they're much less likely to be sharing negative stuff about your studio elsewhere. What we're trying to do is mitigate possible negatives here, which I know is never really a positive way to look at it. But in this particular situation, if it's a breakup, if there's frustration and possibly anger on one or both sides of the relationship, we definitely want to work at that, right? So my wording in this situation tends to be, I'm always striving to improve my teaching as well as how I run the studio. Can you please let me know some positives that you feel or that you think have happened this year? And what are some areas that you feel could be improved? Notice that I worded in such a way that I'm open to their suggestions, right? I'm willing to learn. I'm asking them for positives first, just to try and control. It doesn't become like 5 pages of things that they think I should change. That's a bit of an exaggeration. And then, of course, giving them a chance to let me know their complaints, in essence. So I would recommend definitely do this via email, not in person. In this particular situation, especially if the relationship is not good at this point, if it's a rough one, you want that degree of separation. We can't control what they're going to say or do, but we have to be professionals. And it's a lot easier to do that when they can share what's on their mind, and then we have time to process it and think about the wording. Okay, so what if they try to do this in person? Fair enough. What we want to do is have that degree of separation. Let them know that you're unable to give your full time and energy, your full time to it at that moment. You have another commitment. You don't have to say what that commitment is, but you're going to get yourself out of the situation so that they aren't just venting to you. And let them know that that email is coming. So you're letting them know, you know what? I really want to hear your thoughts. Unfortunately, I have another commitment right now, so I can't stay, or I can't, be able to address them right now. I'm going to send you an email by, and then let them know when. That'll give you an opportunity to let me know what those concerns are. I want to make sure that I have the time to really consider them. And I can't do that right now. Notice that I'm trying to make sure I get myself out of this situation, right? So that it doesn't become venting on their part, but two, that I'm letting them know it's still important to me that they're able to share. So it doesn't come across as blowing off, especially if you make sure you follow through on that email. And I would recommend, like, either later today or tomorrow, you will have that email. This might be the one email that they're willing to read from you. And just let them know. And then once you get that feedback, look at it with an open mind, which can be really hard. So that one family that I was telling you about, the mom thought the makeup lessons should be in person, and the 80-minute round trip for 30-minute lessons was, for one 30-minute lesson, was totally appropriate. You know what? That one was a hard one to look at with an open mind. Did she have any valid concerns? Well, she was concerned that if it wasn't in person, that doing an online makeup lesson or an online lesson wasn't going to be valuable. So that let me know I needed to really make sure clients knew what that was. I needed to word things in a way so that clients felt like, let's try this out, let's see how it goes, and then make sure that those were amazing so that they were open to doing that again in the future. And there's been plenty of situations where, yeah, I felt like a client was being unreasonable in their expectations of what they wanted from me. They were the clients that one client's taking up about 80% of your time and energy. And so, yeah, just looking at, do they have anything valid? Is there anything I can take from this that I can still improve? It doesn't mean you have to do exactly what they're asking for, but maybe there's an underlying thing, like the makeup lessons, that I can address or that I can do better in terms of explaining it, or how I introduce it to my clients, whatever it may be. 3, thank them for the time together. So again, if this is a rough breakup, you might be thinking, I just want it to be done. Rosemarie, why are you prolonging this situation? We want to do this every time that we're saying goodbye, but it's especially important here. They chose you, you chose them. For whatever reason, at some point, you guys saw something in each other that you thought, I think this is going to work. So think back to that, and what elements of that were true, or what were some of the positives of your time together? Remember that people, first impressions and last impressions. We want, especially in this situation, to make a really great last impression. Chances are you made a good first impression. Let's make sure that the last impression is a good one as well. And so saying thank you is a really great way of doing that. Doesn't matter if they say thank you back, doesn't matter how they react. You're ending things with respect. You're ending things on a positive note. And hopefully, if you followed these ideas, you've mitigated the chances of them saying negative things about your studio to other people. They might not sing your praises, but they're also not saying anything bad either. And you know what? Sometimes that's the best we can hope for. So there's a third situation, which is with special needs students and their families. So my background is in special needs education. And when I started my piano studio, that's actually something that I offered to my clients, that I could provide that specialized teaching experience to this group of students. These families, they need extra support, but also because of how funding works and support systems or programming, those can change at the drop of a hat through no fault of these families. And so while I've seen that these families tend to stay the longest in my studio, they're also the most vulnerable to circumstances changing and for them to have to pay for things out of pocket. And so finances can be a challenge at times. And so what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about the why and how we can support these families when we're saying goodbye. So why is this a unique group? So our students in this particular group, they may not deal with change well, especially changes in routine. And if you're not teaching them anymore, then that is a big change in the routine. That's a weekly change that's going to take a transition. So helping prepare your student for that is a really important thing so that they don't feel, and this is the second point, that you have abandoned them. They may feel like that because they've had teachers who got frustrated and just were like, I'm done. Yeah, bye. Off you go. I'm not doing this anymore. It's a sad truth. And so we want to make sure that not just the parents, but the students understand that you want to support their family. And if they're going a separate direction, that's totally fine. You still want to support their family. So here's how we can do it. First of all the ideas I've already talked about, they're going to work great, but there's a few specifics. One, review ways that your student can still learn on their own. Depending on what their learning difficulty might be or what's going on with the student, really spelling out how they can learn independently, it gives a sense of accomplishment and it helps them realize that this isn't the end. This is just a different way of doing things. The second part is focusing on progress, not just in their music, but actually, I would say more importantly, in life skills and coping skills. So for example, I've had students when they got frustrated, when we first started out, they would leave the room or they would turn around so I couldn't see them, or they would hit the piano. Usually not hit the piano, but it did happen. And then by the end of our time together, they had other strategies for dealing with frustration. Now, it can be hard for students in this area to be able to take the skills that they're learning, say in piano lessons, like when I'm frustrated, I can tell the other person I'm frustrated and ask for a little bit of time to just, do some breathing exercises. They might not make the connection between I can do this in piano lessons, but I can also do this at school, or I can also do this at other activities. And so helping them make that connection, that it isn't all compartmentalized. There are skills that they've learned that they can apply to other aspects of their life is a really good one. Schedule those emails or phone calls to follow up. Again, not about music. It's just about how the family is doing, how the transition is going. There's no pressure for them to come back, but it lets them know that you care about their family, and it lets your student know you haven't abandoned them. It's just a different way that your relationship is going to be continuing. And so, yeah, you just want to let them know that you're still thinking of them, right? That it's not like last lesson and done, I'm moving on. So just make sure that you've got those in place. It'll really help those families feel the support, your students feel like you care, and that the time with you doesn't have to necessarily be over. And what you can do is definitely, like when you send a message, that one about the tip I'd had about like you can send them a text if there's something they're into. So like I've had a few students that are really into dinosaurs. So if there was something dinosaur related, I would absolutely send that. Doesn't matter if they're still my student or not. If we're still communicating, I would absolutely send it to them. It lets them know that I'm thinking about them. By the way, let me know in the comments below. Do you want more videos on teaching special needs students or even the admin side of how to support families? Just let me know with special needs students. And I will take that as a sign that you want more videos that have content like this. So as promised, here is a resource that is going to help you say goodbye to students and their families in a way that's supportive and leaves them feeling valued. And that is actually the companion article to this video. It's called Saying Goodbye to Students Regardless of the Situation. It covers a lot of the same points here. What I would actually recommend is, one, you can take a quick skim through it, but save it in Evernote or whatever app you're using, and then set a reminder for times of the year when you might have students leaving the studio. The reason for that is that way you don't have to remember all of these ideas forever. You can refer back to it. And so you can use it as a resource, a reference resource. So you're not going to want to miss out on future videos. I cover everything from creative teaching strategies to studio admin tips, just like this video, and how to balance it all. Be sure to hit the subscribe and like button